We are in Mzuzu, a town in the north of Malawi, and it's the rainy season. James, the marijuana trafficker who is among the growing number of traffickers smuggling marijuana across this route, lets on that the rain may make it difficult for us to meet his contact and go into the hills of Karonga where he sources his marijuana, but we push on. We hired a taxi and pick up James' contact, a man introduced to us only as Bright, and immediately strike up a conversation.
What's the best kind of soil that it grows in?
It's like, if it goes with loamy soils, with a little sandy.
As we go along, we notice the thick man-made forests everywhere, an initiative of Malawi's first president, Kamuzu Banda, taken up in earnest by Malawians. And from what I'm told, this was a boost by default to marijuana farmers who are now better able to hide their crop. Soon we reach a point where our taxi can go no further.
So Bright, who's going to be taking us up to the mountain, says that we have to walk about an hour and a half over this hill and round the back and then up again. Of course, you know, this being for the reason that, you know, marijuana isn't exactly a cash crop that many people would like to see growing right next to the road. So it's going to be a long walk.
And so begins the climb. I had underestimated just how far up the hill this farm was. Close to 3 hours later, we get to a clearing on top of a hill and from a distance see what seems to be a small family working around a drying table, sorting out tobacco leaves. But as we get closer, we see that this is hardly tobacco that this woman and these children are sorting out. She is the wife of a well-known marijuana farmer in Karonga, but he's away for the afternoon, so she asks Bright to speak on his behalf as we wait for him to return. Bright joins them at the sorting table and samples for himself fresh marijuana produce from the table. My first question, how many days worth of harvesting is this?
It depends on how many are you, but if there's 2 people, they can pluck it within 2 hours.
And what quantity of marijuana can be produced for sale from this table?
This is approximately 50 crops. Should be more than 50 crops.
A cob, like the one we saw in James's room, is what the people here use to pack marijuana. The farmers collect purely smokable marijuana and pack it into dried banana leaves and tie them up. Thus in appearance, they look similar to maize cobs. In Kenya and Tanzania, marijuana is packed along with the sticks and seeds in brown papers and called stones. The stones are usually cylindrical and are about the size of a roll of toilet paper.
At market, in the street, it's almost 300 each.
300 kwacha is the shilling equivalent of about 200 shillings. Quite a find for a drug trafficker like James.
Part of the appeal of marijuana to the people that smoke it, and there are many, is the fact that it's cheap. For instance, if this bud were to be rolled into a cigarette, it would cost anywhere between 20 shillings and 100 shillings, which is far cheaper than any of the other drugs in Kenya like cocaine or heroin. Now add that to the fact that from this, a drug dealer could make about 5 times the amount of profit than what he put in it, then you have a really, really solid business plan.
A benefit that even at the low price of 200 shillings is passed on to the farmer.
We buy some fertilizers. You buy some? Fertilizer. With some of the monies we used to pay school fees, you see, buy some necessities, and we even keep a little cash for some in case we might need some.
Bright himself was raised off of the proceeds of marijuana, and despite it being illegal,
it's something we don't harm no one. It's a tradition thing. So almost everyone here is growing. So it's very difficult for someone to go out there saying, you know, someone is growing this and that. Because everyone knows that, you know, we're eating from this stuff and we have to keep it secret.
On the farm, something that struck me was how oblivious the women and the children here were to the fact that they were participating in a crime. To them, marijuana is an ordinary cash crop and they are simply farmers.
They play a vital role in all these stages, like farming, the farm as well, they plant as well, and they're good at grading.
Evening begins to set in, and as the day's produce is being put away, we're asked to stay for dinner as a man of the house and a few men from neighboring farms come home. As we sit round the fire, they partake of some marijuana and cigarettes as they tell us about their farms and their lives. These aren't the sort of men that many would expect, in reggae terms, ganja farmers to look like. Theirs is the simple countryside life lived by millions across Africa. And as they put it, they're all just trying to survive. The following morning, we're up early and are led to where the owner of the farm is. Peter is a small, pleasant man, and as it is harvesting season, he's sorting out the plants that won't bear any buds. He's been doing this for the past 27 years. Off of the profits of marijuana, he's able to support 3 wives and pay for the school fees of his 6 children. And business is good.
Koma kuti tima isesa nditu ugulisa mfano mozi uja 500 600 yeah. Koma kuti ka profit ukuta kwa mwezi timapeza mwina 30,000.
On the slopes of these hills, I'm able to see fully grown marijuana plants about a month away from harvest, and plants in the nursery. In total, an estimated 2,000 stems are growing in this area alone. And he has more pieces of land where he grows marijuana.
Ndinu ndau zina timapita kwa sing'anga kauza sing'anga mukati sirikire dimbala kwatu kuti akubaji azikumana mwina ndizokhoma kufika kuno dimba usaliona.
When we get back to Peter's home, we find his wives and children packing some marijuana for James to carry, as well as for Bright to sell locally. Back at our hotel, James packs up the cobs he has bought on this trip.
How many are those? 50 cobs. Yeah. Engine up?
Yeah, man.
He's afraid that because our cameras will be trained on him in public, it could arouse suspicion about his cargo. This, he says, will be sold in Kenya in less than a week. There are 3 reasons for this: price, quality, and quantity. In terms of price, even if James sold each marijuana cigarette for 100 shillings, it would still be the cheapest drug in town. Cocaine is the most expensive, with a street value of 1,500 to 2,000 shillings per gram. One small packet of heroin goes for between 100 and 200 shillings. A pill of ecstasy on the street costs between 300 and 500 shillings, and marijuana costs anywhere between 20 shillings and 100 shillings. And as for quality and quantity, whereas James can't quite get as much marijuana onto the streets as he'd like, the growing demand for strong marijuana makes his a premier product. On the way back, he makes little effort to hide the red bag that he's put the marijuana in, putting the bag on the bus in plain sight of everyone.
Oh, look Panawande, bombo,
The demand that James supplies while growing isn't where the mass market for marijuana is. Kenya's informal settlements, fed by local producers, are where marijuana is in plenty. We go to Mount Kenya to examine this supply line for ourselves. And and examine other factors that make marijuana the international and local iconic drug that it is.
Miss Indian Kush, alini push, ni disperse seeds zake, ni wapedush.
And look at the downside to getting high.
Apart from marijuana, because I was even using cocaine and changa.
John Allen Namu for NTV Investigates.